Okay, now I'm going to show you how to fill the ink tank bottles. Now if you notice, the little vent plugs are open in the back. You want to close them up. That's very important. If you open both of them up, the ink from this side will go into the isobaric side. Now if that should ever happen, you put both of the plugs in and you re-rock the bottles. But now to fill them, you close it off and you open up the big one. Then you're going to take your ink and you're just going to fill up that chamber to about here. A little indicator right here, about that high. And no lower than, oh, I would say 1 inch from the bottom. We've actually gone too low, and I can see the in-feed tube where it's above the ink. You don't want to do that because that's going to draw all the air back into the system. Okay, I continue to keep filling it, like I said, till I get around this little mark right here. And I'll put the plug back in, and then it's very important that you open up the back vent plug. That's the isobaric chamber. Okay, now I can go back there and open it up. That's how you fill up the ink tank. Now, I'll go along and fill them all up while I'm doing it. Now I showed a little earlier in the video, you know how I filled it. There's watch the ink level of the yellow when I pull both plugs. It's going right on down. It's because the ink now is going into the back where the isobaric chamber is. So you can't leave it like that. If you were to continue to keep filling it, both chambers would fill up. So how do you fix the problem? Put the small plug in the back and the big plug in the front, and then you'd be rocking the bottles. And now you can see, now watch, I'm going to just rock them a little bit here. Just a little bit. Now I'm leaving the cover open just so you can see. Okay, now it's full back up. Right back up to that line. That's how you balance it. Now make sure you open them up after you do that. Okay, now this is part of the maintenance video for the HP Officejet Pro 8600 series, like the 8610, 20, and 30. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking this cover off. This is the printhead I took out, and because I had a problem, I kept getting an error message, cartridge missing or damaged. I found out that the little spring, these little contact springs, one of them, after I take out the HP cartridge a couple of times, probably more than a couple of times, I noticed that the one contact got damaged. So it kept telling me that one is missing or damaged. Now at Ink Products we have a replacement board that you can get. It's fairly simple to do. You're going to take out 4 screws that are on the top, and then you're going to take out the 2 that hold the board in, this little chipboard in, and then it's going to slide in and you're going to plug in the ribbon cable. It's a little ribbon cable right there, see it? That goes right into the board. Now I put it on a paper napkin because you can see ink is kind of dripping out here, so I don't want to get it all over. So now I'll take those screws out and put the new chipboard back in. Okay, now I took the 2 screws out. There's the chipboard, and now I'm going to slide the new one in and put the 2 screws back in. That's how simple it was. So if you need one of these new chipboards, if you find that yours are damaged, you can go to inkproducts.com. Now the other parts of this video are going to show you how to replace the COC Smart Chip on the auto refilling supply system that we make, and we're going to show you how to prime up the cartridges and just general maintenance that you need to know. Okay, I put the 2 screws back in. Now I'm going to put the ribbon cable back into the little connector here, and then I'll install the top back on, and I'm all done. That's how simple it was to replace that, rather than buy a whole new printhead. That makes more sense. Now, if a chip should fail, these are peel and stick chips. COC Smart Chip. You're going to use a little X-Acto knife or a little knife, peel the chip off, and then you can get an extra chip, a new chip. There's one right there. And then you can just peel and stick it back on. Very simple to do. Now, it's very important that if you're replacing a magenta chip or a cyan or yellow, you use the correct chip, because they are color coded for that particular color. So don't mix them up. Okay, I took that black chip off. Here's a new one. I peel it, and I'm just going to stick it in the proper place where the other one came off. That's it. Replace the chip. Now the next part of the video, I'm going to show you a little trick with hose. If you ever have to replace the cartridge, you just have to pull out the elbow and purchase another cartridge and push it in. You don't have to glue anything or anything. This is something I want to point out. In some production runs, we used to put the hose at the top. And then we found out that it's better to put it in the center because it controls ink flow better. So you can just reverse it. Take it from the top, put it in the center. Or if you have to replace it, just wiggle it out and then push it in. Now, besides the elbow, there's a little compression ring. I'm going to show you that. Okay, there's the compression ring right there. What it does is it goes in the hole, and then you're going to push the elbow into it. And the reason for that is that expands and creates an airtight seal, just like this. Ways you can prime it. You can prime it from the top hole or from the front, which we call the exit port. So if I were to hold it straight up and take out that plug at the top here, take it out. Then I take the barrel of the syringe with nothing on it, and I'm going to snug it down in there, and then I'll pull up. And that's one way to purge it. Okay, I got it snugged in there. Remember now, the large plug has to be open. Okay, then I'll pull up. I'll hold it. It takes a second or two. You can see it's running right through. Now, I would hold it, or I would redo this again. In other words, if I had to collapse the plunger to keep filling it up, I'd take it out, collapse the plunger, and go back into that and pull up. You want to pull up so you can get at least 5 or 6 milliliters of ink. Maybe sometimes the ink level will go down halfway, but you want to make sure you get as much of the air out as you can. There it is, starting to get up. There it goes. So there, I'm going to keep pulling up a little bit, and that ink there I can return back to the ink tank bottle. When I'm done, I'm going to wiggle it back out and put the plug back in. Now I'm going to show you another way. You can go in through the exit port and draw it out that way. Now sometimes we supply the tips to do this. It all depends on the version or the model number, but we have these type of tips that sometimes you have to go in that way. You want to see if the ink is being drawn out by the printer. But they don't always come in your kit, and we do have them up on our website. Because normally when we build the system, we prime from the back. But I'm going to show you what happens when you pull from the front. When you get the little tip, you want to cut it on a little bit of a 45-degree angle. So when you go in, it collapses the poppet spring that's in there and then allows the ink to pass through. Now there, what I'm using is a large clamp to hold the cartridge. So that frees up both of my hands here to go in. I'm going to push it in, and then I'll be able to pull up, and you'll see ink come into the barrel of that syringe. This way you know you've taken all the air out of the exit port check valve. You don't always have to do it, but I just thought I'd show you this in a video. There it is. I pulled up quite a bit. I can return it to the ink tank over there in a minute. Right there, I'm going to put it back in. Now my ink line hose is all completely filled with ink. There's no air. I make sure my tank is filled. I'll put the large plug back in and then open up the small plug. That has to be open when you're using the system. Now you might look in there and you see a little bit of air left. Don't be alarmed, that's okay. There's always going to be some air in there because the printer actually blows air in through here to force the ink out. And sometimes it can put in so much air you can cause a problem called ink system failure. Okay, now when this pops up, it says there's a problem with the printer or ink system. Turn the printer off. If it persists, call HP. What's happened there is that one of the chambers in the printhead has been starved of ink, and then that gives you this error code. So I'm going to show you how to correct it. Now I just installed a continuous ink system, and that popped up. I made that happen so you can see how to fix it. Now in this video I'm going to show you. Now I just turned it off and turned it back on. I'm going to see if that error code goes away. Now it still says the same thing. So now we're going to investigate a little bit more. Now sometimes this is the best way to fix ink system failure. You're going to remove the continuous ink system and you're going to put in a set of HP cartridges. You have to do that. Now there's another way. On the video I'm going to show you, you don't have to do that. But this is the easiest way. And this will help charge up that printhead. And then you'll be able to prime up the ink system. That's very important. You got to go in there and prime it up. You got to purge any air that's trapped inside the cartridges, purge it up, and then you'll be able to put it in. Now once you do that, it'll go into a charging. You'll hear it charge up, and then when it's done, you get back to the screen. Now you see my ink levels are full. You have to use a good or a new set of HP cartridges to overcome that error code. Now in the next part of the video, you're going to see me using some aluminum tape to really fix the problem. The only problem is if you leave the aluminum tape on and you run your ink bottles empty or your cartridges empty, you'll damage your printhead. So be very, very careful when doing the next part of this video. Okay, now I took the two screws off the back of the printhead. And you notice there's little contact springs. And they touch each one of these blocks right here. I'm going to put a little piece of aluminum foil over each one of them and put it back. I want to see if that corrects that ink system failure problem. My guess is going to be that the chamber inside, there's two little pins that go in, and when the ink goes in, makes a contact and transfer that contact to the board. But I don't think it's getting enough contact. So I'm going to try the piece of aluminum foil over each one. I'll show you that. Now I don't know if you should leave it on there, but I'm going to give it a try right now. Okay, now I just folded some ordinary aluminum, foil, and I'm going to cover that area there, and I'll put a piece of Scotch tape to hold it there till I can assemble it back. But just over like that. I want one separate one for each one of the contacts. Now you can see how I've got the little aluminum. So now I'm going to be able to put the board up and put the screws on. Now you don't want any of these touching. You don't want this one touching that one or that one touching that one. Keep them separated. Okay, now I put the ribbon cable back in. Got the screws back in. Now I'm going to put the print head back in. Bring the lever back up because there's a locking lever in there. You want to make sure you bring that up to lock it in. There you go. I'm sorry, bring it down, not up. Okay, now let's put in the cartridges and see if our error message goes away. Okay, now I got the cartridges in. I'll put the jumper in. And it's going to ask again for the scheduled maintenance. We'll say OK. Now it's going to do alignment again. And we're going to see if it fails now. Last time it failed on the alignment as far as it went into ink system failure. See, I think in the printhead itself there may be some problems with some of the HP printheads. There it goes. It's going to try to prime it up now. And it gives a false reading. Now sometimes you can put a set of HP in, cartridges brand new ones, and they'll bring it back, and then you can put the ink system back in and everything's fine. But sometimes it keeps making you go back and forth, back and forth. You want to make sure the cartridges are primed, and then if you don't have a brand new set of HPs, this is a little trick that you can try. A lot of people don't want to go out and buy a set of HPs that cost around $100. Okay, now see, I'm getting something. So it had nothing to do with the ink system or the COC smart chips. It had to do with the printhead. The paper got stuck printing this out. So if you have a brand new set of HPs, then you can probably clear it that way. But if you don't, I just showed you a little trick. The only danger with using that is if you let the ink tank or the cartridge go too empty, you could burn out your printhead. So I want you to be aware of that. You can leave it on there, but that sometimes can happen. And sometimes when one color isn't printing, all it turns out to be is you got to prime up the cartridge. But I think a lot of times it's the printhead gets confused about how much ink is in that cavity. And when those, in the video, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about the two pins going in, and the liquid of the ink makes the contact. So I'm going to go get an old printhead. I'm going to rip it apart so I can show you. Okay, the alignment page finally came out. So now I'm going to print something out. I'll print one of the test pages or something. It just says now printing. I don't know why, but I might have something in the queue here. Now you're going to see this right here. It says the alignment was unsuccessful. I don't care. I really don't care. Okay, let's go to our ink levels. They're all full. Or at least the yellow, cyan, magenta are low. So there was nothing wrong with the ink system. It's the printhead itself has a problem that when it gets stuck in an error code, it's hard to erase it. So I just showed you how to do that. It says print report. Let's print it. Well, this is an old 8600 Pro. We've had it for about 2 years. I beat the death out of it in doing all these tests. There you go. I already see all my colors. Now let's go over and see. Everything looks good. There's the version number. That happens to be the new one. Then we go down here and it'll tell us how many prints we printed. We printed 36,950 prints through this printer. But see, after that firmware update, it did something where it drives his printers crazy. I think they tried to fix something and they probably created more of a problem. Now, this is a repair and maintenance video, so I'm going to show you other repair things you need to know and other maintenance things you know. But the HP 8600 Pro, 8610, 8620, and 30, they're just awesome printers. It's just they got a couple little things we got to get through, and you should like the printer. We've been doing this 20 years. We don't sell a product till we know it's going to work and how to fix a problem. And our latest COC smart chips are just the best. Okay, now I went and got an old printhead. Just wanted to show you. There's those little springs I was talking about. See, I think what happens over time, they get dirty back there or whatever, but they don't report correctly. So now, in here, there's 2 pins where that goes through. So the 2 pins come in here, and when you fill the printhead cavity up with ink, it makes a contact, becomes a conductor. So it'll make an electric connection, and it tells the printer, oh yeah, there's ink in there, keep printing. But sometimes it doesn't register correctly, or maybe just because you're using an ink system, maybe refillable cartridges, refilling the HPs, you may never experience that. But if you do experience it, when you're using a system, then with the aluminum foil, I showed you how to fix it. The downside, and this is very important, if you run it out of ink, it will burn that printhead out. So beware of that. Now I've left the foil on. I keep watching my ink. I don't let it run empty, so I don't have that problem. I prime up the cartridges when they need it. And this is called maintenance. You gotta know this if you're gonna use an ink supply system. Now, this is another important thing. A lot of companies sell a dye-based ink to print through here. That is when you really can have some problems clogging the printhead, because these are thermal printheads and they have to heat up to a certain temperature and the ink has to be right, and then it fires it. If the ink doesn't heat up correctly, like dye base, because if it was going to be dye base, HP would have put dye base in there. It can burn it out. And you obviously, this is for the people out there, don't ever use sublimation ink in a thermal printhead. No matter what you read on the internet, it will not work. So there. So now with this video, you might understand a lot more. Now also in the video, I'm going to show you with our new power charge cartridges. They're basically a cartridge. They have no chip on them, and it's going to power charge and clean the printhead. From time to time you have to do that, and we use a chemical that we developed called Blue Lightning. It's just the best for thermal printheads, especially for the HPs. So in the next part of the video, I'm going to show cleaning the printhead. I want to point this out. I accidentally left the spring out of the printhead. You want to make sure you don't do that, because it won't function at all. So pay close attention to that when you're adding the aluminum foil. Okay, now I'm going to do a Blue Lightning. You're going to get a set of cartridges. Now cartridges can vary, the design of them, but they basically work the same. Doesn't matter what slot you put them in, but you can put them in, and then you're going to power flush the printhead. Now you'll see, this is a very old, sticky, beat up printhead. I deliberately got it out so you can see how to flush it. Now I'm going to take some blue lighting, because this is definitely an old printhead, and I'm wipe off the front of that printhead with a little bit of the blue lighting. Now you always want to warm it. Then what I do is I have a little dish that I put it in, and I fold some paper towels. This way when I put the printhead down on it, it absorbs all the chemical. So now you're going to tip it up. I'll put that other cartridge in, and then through the little hole here, we're going to put the barrel of the syringe. Okay, I'm going to make sure the cartridges are locked in. I'll start with the yellow. I put the syringe in, snugs right in there, and I slowly start the pressure. Now wait a minute, give it a second. Don't push too fast. You'll start to see the chemical react. I'm going to slowly push. Now like I said, this has been an old printhead. It's been out of the printer for a long time. So I'm just going. I'm starting to feel some pressure now. I'm just going to wait. Now what you want to do is warm up that blue lighting. Just give it a second. Okay, now it's starting to come out. So I'm starting to break the clog. And I just let it sit. I'll lay it down here for a minute. Just let it sit. It may take up to a half hour to do this, but then you're going to get a good clean printhead. And if electrically, if the printhead's working, then you should have no trouble printing. And then I'll do the next one and the next one the exact same way. And you can continue to keep refilling these power flush cartridges and using them over. Now there's no chip on them, so you can't put them in the printer and use them. Gotta do it this way. I can tell it's getting better because I'm getting less resistance. So the yellow's starting to clear up. Let me see if I can show you spraying out. Yeah, look at it. Spraying right out now. See that? That's what I want. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing to the cyan because the yellow finally broke loose. So I'm going to slowly push down. Oh, it's already, the cyan's already coming out. It's already coming out. So that means it's breaking any clog. Just let it sit. You know, you can let it sit overnight like this, just to clear it out. Then you can reuse this printhead. Unless something electrically is bad with the printhead, this is the way you would clean it. And most of the time you're going to get a clog from using the wrong ink or dye-based ink, and that's what causes clogs, because it's not very good quality ink. Now I've taken the syringe out and it's still weeping some blue lightning out. So that means it's free and clear. There's enough pressure left behind. So I did the yellow, the magenta, the yellow and the cyan. I'll do the magenta and the black next. Then I'll dry it off real good. Now, when you go to put it in, you've got chemical in there. So you want to make sure you have a set of HP cartridges to reprime the printhead up with ink. Now, sometimes you can use the continuous ink system to reprime it. I've done it and it works fine. But you're going to run about 10 or 15 sheets of scrap, the best quality. And always set it on best quality. And that'll bring the printhead back.